Ginny had been kind of hoping that the aliens got beamed up, even though it creeped her out to think about little green men beaming in and out. Had they used the porch supports to climb up there the way she and Van and Dex used to? She rubbed her forehead with both hands, as if she could push thinking in from the outside, but her thoughts remained random and thick. The sight of the footprints, or foot-ish prints, reminded her of another problem with sweeping off the dish. "You're not exactly dressed for snow removal," she pointed out, giving his bare feet a pointed look. Dex closed the door, then shoved the lock home. "Do you think that box of spare clothes is still around somewhere? You know, for when we were just up for the day." "And fell in the crick," she finished. "I think I remember stowing some boxes in the attic for Mom a few years back. Let's hope we can find something that fits better than this." Dex gave her a wry grin, almost tossing her back in the past again, except there was more awareness in his eyes than there'd been back then. At 13, Dex had been thick as a brick about girls. "Okay, so if we can get the dish clear, we should at least get the phone online." She bit back a groan. "If we can find it. Be nice to get Mom's computer up, too. And the TV. Like to check the weather. Because Biff and Van are supposed to come. When their emergency..." She stopped again. Reluctant, but it had to be said. Maybe. What if their emergency is somehow related to this? If it was, then they wouldn't be arriving anytime soon. Dex grimaced and shrugged. She wasn't sure if that was agreement or not. What other kind of emergency could NASA have? I really thought they were sneaking up. She broke off as Desi suddenly stopped dancing and looked at her. Isaac also looked up from his game, as if sensing this was the moment to pay attention. Some alone time. "That could still be where they are," Dex said a bit dryly, the man's awareness boosting signal in the eyes looking out of the 13-year-old's face. It was all a bit then and now, and Ginny wished she were brave enough to ask him, "Why didn't you then, and why are you here now?" Because a possible alien invasion wasn't enough to worry about. The writer in her found she was a bit fascinated by her reactions and thought processes. She was all over the map, thinking-wise. Clarity one moment, random inconsequential the next. Or perhaps not relevant to the situation was better description. The past, with Dex in her present, felt more important than she liked. And yeah, there went her thinking straight off the road again. She brought it firmly back to this present. Not that that helped her thinking all that much. What was it Desi had said? First contact never went well? She'd sat on a panel on what first contact would be like. When she'd got the assignment, she'd almost panicked until she remembered that no one knew what it would be like. At least no one who would admit it. So they'd all just made it up as they went along, postulating this and that. And now here she was, and none of that postulating felt relevant. She'd for sure never foreseen a first contact where she was 13 again. And who actually believed in little green men? If there isn't an actual emergency and the storm holds off, then they should be heading our way. When? Dex asked, breaking in on her not exactly productive thinking. Something of her mixed feelings must have shown on her face, because he cocked a questioning brow. She grinned ruefully. "We really are awake, right? Because this doesn't feel like awake. I mean, I feel awake, but it doesn't feel real to me either." He pulled out the chair next to her and sat. "Kind of takes me back. I remember this, well, almost this, when I got hit by the realization that you were a girl and your mom realized we couldn't be left alone to play anymore." She didn't blame him for waiting until she was 14 to notice. If she'd hoped to forget how bad it was to be 13, well, this morning had brought it all back. His rather wry smile was a mix of then and now. The post girls have cooties look. She'd fallen hard for him. Well, as hard as a 13-year-old could fall. She realized now that he'd been a safe place for a vulnerable heart. Until he wasn't anymore. She had to bite back, again, the longing to ask him what had happened. This was totally the wrong moment for postmortems on their dead relationship, even if she found the guts to ask. It's not like she didn't know she was the queen of denial, or she'd have given the big chill his answer before she left Dallas. Though if she were doomed to live her life over, that thing was no longer a thing she needed to worry about. She was pretty sure the big chill wouldn't want to be married to a 13-year-old, which just showed that every cloud had at least a small silver lining. Isaac looked up from his notebook and cleared his throat. "I've been working on a plan," he said. Gini wasn't sure why she knew plan had a capital P, but she did. "A plan?" Dex asked the question gravely, not even a twitch of the lips. Isaac set his notebook on the table and Gini saw drawings and notes. "We should probably wake up Daphne," he said, though not eagerly, more resignation in his tone. "We'll need all hands on deck, though not sure." He frowned, considering this. "I figured with her and without her, because it might take her a long time to quit freaking out." Dex looked at Gini. She leaned back, her hands lifted protectively. "Don't look at me. I'd like to live long enough to not be 13. Isaac ignored this. "As noted, you both need to go get the more suitable clothes. We must locate the phone and, if possible, the Wi-Fi password," he said. "With Wi-Fi, we can text, even if it is too dangerous to talk." Not exactly a lot new in the plan, though she hadn't thought about the benefits of texting if they were being monitored from above. Gini looked at Desi, aka the keeper of the password, who was now trying to stand on her head. Maybe she would rather die, waking up Daphne. Dex added an action item to Isaac's master plan. The men would secure the structure, whatever that meant, and then consider whether or not to wake Daphne, who might technically be the oldest now. But getting clothes was a major priority. Dex did look ridiculous, and she was pretty sure she did too. "Desi, want to go look in the attic?" Desi brightened, then nodded, holding out her small hand with the confidence of an 8-year-old. Gini took it, feeling an odd mix of comfort and not comfort, familiar and strange. She wanted to hold her mom's hand. She missed that more than she had realized, in the bustle of being a grown-up. There was a flash of her mom in the eyes for a moment before Desi grinned and tugged. "Let's go." Gini sent a look back at Dex, not happy at this dividing of their forces, but aware they also couldn't move around the house in a clump. If her mom was still in there, Gini might have a better chance of reaching her if they were alone. "Do you happen to remember where the phone is, Mo? Desi?" she asked as they climbed the stairs, then headed toward the end of the hall and the cord that hung down. Desi ran ahead and tugged it, lowering the smaller set of stairs to the attic. Chill air rushed down, and old smells, forgotten until now smells. For a moment she rocked back on her heels as the past rushed over her. She and Van and Dex loved to play up there, even when it was next door to a freezer. Desi paused halfway up the stairs, a vague, yet familiar, look altering the young gaze. "The phone, it's by my bed. Oh, look!" She ran up the last few steps. Gini followed, interested to find that her newly young body was not as bothered with gravity at this higher altitude as her older body had been last night. Boxes were piled randomly around the opening. She felt a pang of missing her dad. He'd have never left it in a jumble like this. She and Van had done this. Dad. He'd seen them off to college, so proud. "Let's try this one." Desi pulled the top open. "Our snow things." It didn't take long to find some clothes that would probably work, and there'd always been boots in a variety of sizes because the weather could change in a blink up in the mountains, even in summer. With her arms full, Gini followed Desi down, letting her push the stairs back in place several times. She stopped by what had been her mom's bedroom before the wheelchair, as more memories tried to complicate her thoughts. Was this the room Desi meant? It had probably been prepared by Pleasance for Biff and Van. She decided she'd better check, had to push through the past to go inside. Did she still smell her dad in here? For sure her mom's favorite scent lingered in the air, but she could have sworn. The phone was in there for whatever reason. The bed hadn't been slept in. She checked the phone. It had charge, not a lot, but hopefully enough. If the storm got worse, power might be an issue. Desi appeared in the doorway. Gini turned. Questions were tricky when her mom was her mom. Would it be easier or harder now that she was 8? Mo Desi, do you know where the power cord for the phone is? And the password to the Wi-Fi? She shouldn't have rushed it. Knew it as soon as the words were out her mouth. The little face wrinkled up in puzzlement. What? The clothes were warmer and fit better, but were far from the sassy that Gini would have liked when engaging in an adventure with her first love. Gini didn't know if she could view this body without the angst attached. As a writer, she knew all about how point of view could affect what one saw, what one felt. But pairing ill-fitting, faded clothing with the awkward body of a 13-year-old didn't see how her point of view could be anything but, I want to hide in the closet and cry, or wake up myself again, all 35 years of myself. Yeah, that one. She looked morosely at Desi, who had sprawled on the huge couch with her head hanging off the edge and was now softly singing disjointed bits of Christmas carols. As Ginny's now young body, once again surging into the hormone zone, filled up with angst and 13-year-oldness, it was a bit shaming to realize how much her mom had been the focus of her dark thoughts and feelings. Now, with her mom a kid, angst was a heat-seeking missile in a place with no one to lock onto. She heard the stamp of booted feet on wood, felt a rush of cold air. Then Dex appeared in the doorway, shaking snow off his ill-fitting clothes. He had an odd look on his face, based on all the oddness they'd been forced to deal with since they woke up. Gini found it disturbing. What odd was left to put an odd look on his face? Their odd should be all tapped out. She started to ask, but he shook his head slightly, his gaze flicking toward Isaac and Desi. I think the dish is clear enough, but we should leave. We can call Biff on our way down. When Gini didn't jump up, he arched his brows like he was still 35. We need to go now. We have a larger problem to solve, she said. We're not old enough to drive anymore, Sheriff Tolliver. His eyes widened, his legal duty clearly warring with his desire to get the heck out of here. What had he seen out there? 13 sucked then, and it sucks now, she added gloomily. Leave before Santa comes. Deezy's face got a mutinous cast to it. She crossed small arms over her narrow chest and scowled. I won't. We can't leave until we find out what's going on, Isaac said, with more authority than he actually had. She and Dex were bigger than him. And that was so 13, Ginny shuddered. Her thoughts paused as another look, not so much odd as wary, crossed Dex's face. It felt very Mulder to wonder what truth was out there. Isaac, who had somehow acquired possession of the phone, studied it. While I'm personally opposed to calling my dad or my mom, if we're going to do it, we should do it before this runs out of battery. Gini took it, punched Van's cell number, and hit send. The call connected and clicked right over to her machine. Gini bit back something rude. It's her machine. That's something, Dex pointed out. And exactly what message do I leave? Here. Isaac took the phone back, waited a few seconds, then said, This is Isaac. We need Dad to come and get us, or we're going to run away. He clicked the phone off, then dialed and apparently left the same message for his dad. Gini exchanged a look with Dex. He shrugged. That might work. She looked at Isaac. You don't want to call your, mom? She won't be any help, Isaac said matter-of-factly. She was freaking out on Facebook before they closed the doors on the plane. I wonder who would be help, Gini muttered, and what that help would look like. Did NASA have a Men in Black division? Dex looked kind of rueful, though still very worried. What? She asked. Do you remember when we used to play First Contact? Oh, yeah. They had. Had she used some of their play scenarios for the panel? It had all happened pre-angst, was one of those faded photograph memories, but now it all swirled in her head, Kodachrome crisp once more. Her lips curved up. We used to be the ones to save the aliens from the evil whatever that wanted to capture them for research and study. First contact never goes well in fiction, she said the last, a bit thoughtfully. When they apparently told Daisy it didn't go well, they didn't mean here, did they? What if there had been first contact? Did Van know about it too? Had she and Mom been holding out on her? Secrecy, blah, blah, blah. But they were sisters. How come you didn't write that book? He asked. Because I could never figure out how to make it work out for the aliens, she admitted. Look at how we've panicked. I mean, we're not rioting or anything, but we're definitely not happy. Not that she didn't have good reason. Being turned 13, in her opinion, was not a good first contact move. Which brought her back to wondering what would be a good first contact move. She traced a pattern in the tabletop with a finger. Why do you suppose they picked Van? I mean, it's not just that she's NASA, at least I wouldn't think. As far as Gini knew, Van's specialty was FTL research. How to get there, not how to say howdy to the aliens. She wrote a paper on it, Isaac said. He looked up. You can Google it. We should probably wake up Daphne. He stopped. Gini waited for him to finish, but when he didn't, she followed his gaze to the big doorway. There was a little green man standing there, regarding them with some wariness in his platter-shaped eyes. 4 more appeared around him. Maybe they could beam in and out. They appeared to be wearing elf suits, Santa's elvish suits, of green velvet with white fur at the collars and sleeves. Little gay sprigs of holly adorned each lapel. Oh, and they had ray guns. At least they looked like ray guns. Her sense they were ray guns was boosted by the fact that they were pointed at them. Dateline, notes from Isaac's strategic planning notebook. If they came in peace, why the ray guns? I wonder how hard it would be to get one. I've always wanted a ray gun. I wish I was home alone. Adults turned into kids are more useless than adults. Dateline, from Daphne's cell phone sleep monitor. I wish I were tugged. Snort. Dateline, advanced scouting party report. First attempt at contact with these humans. Hoping friendly elf suits will inspire trust, bringing Gristonators just in case.